Joining me now is Bozzella. He is the Alliance for Automotive Innovation CEO here with us in our Washington, D.C. studio. So given we are in D.C. where things don't always get accomplished very quickly, let's talk about something that already has been accomplished. The IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act. How is your industry feeling about that legislation?
Yeah, this legislation really from an auto industry perspective is fundamental and transformational. It provides support for both the industrial transformation, in other words, the shift from building internal combustion engines to building electrified vehicles, and it also supports consumers who are now looking to purchase new technologies. And so from both perspectives, this is significant.
But do the companies making the cars and selling the cars and the consumers who would buy the cars have enough clarity at this point? What questions are still lingering?
Yeah, not yet. The implementation of this act is a massive undertaking. And so it's complex, it's challenging, it's difficult. And so manufacturers and customers both need a little bit more information before they know as customers whether they qualify or the vehicle they're looking for qualifies, for example, for a tax credit. And manufacturers need more information because this is the incentives and programs built into this act really require shifting of supply chains and availability of critical minerals and the like.
Okay, so then it becomes a question of the timeline. What is the degree of confidence in the industry that all of this clarity can be reached, consumers can take advantage of these tax credits, all of this can happen within, say, the next 2 years before the political winds could potentially shift here in Washington in 2024?
Yeah, the fact is the tax credits are already available to customers. And so if a customer were to go onto the Treasury website or irs.gov, they would be able to see by manufacturer and by product what vehicles might be available for example, a $7,500 federal tax credit. So far, so good. There's some complications. The vehicle has to be made in North America. Only vehicles at a certain price point qualify, and only customers with a certain adjusted gross income qualify. Where it gets challenging is there's a new set of guidance or rules coming out of Treasury that are going to speak to content. Where are the battery components made? Where do the critical minerals and raw materials come from? And there, things will get a little bit more confusing as manufacturers work through those rules, and then customers can then ultimately figure out which vehicles would still qualify for tax credits.
And while we're talking about the different vehicles, obviously, as you said, this is part of a drive to shift from internal combustion engines to electric vehicles. I'm wondering if the push toward EVs, toward a greener economy, which does have a political debate around that, if you will, on the speed and degree to which that should happen. Given already we have divided Congress, I'm wondering what kind of progress you expect on that going forward, and if progress can then be hindered, say, in 2024, if we have entirely different leadership altogether.
Yeah. Well, let's step back and look at the industry broadly. The auto industry is going through a significant transformation. We're moving toward advanced technologies like electrified propulsion, but also highly automated vehicles and more safety technology in the vehicles. This is good for consumers. It's also important from an economic perspective and from an international competitive perspective that we maintain this critical cutting-edge industrial base. That's what this is all about. That unites customers, workers, and policymakers.
On the international subject, though, there has been some pushback to this legislation from European leaders, for example. How worried are you about that friction, if you will, on the international landscape, considering you work with automotive companies around the world?
Yeah, companies are engaged globally. You're exactly right. We represent global companies that are trying to sell vehicles and build vehicles all around the world. Countries often make decisions to support policy shifts that will encourage new investments, and that's what's going on here at the IRA. I think in the United States with regard to the IRA, I think if ultimately, though, in order for us to be successful, we are going to have to partner with other countries around the world to reimagine the industrial base, especially if we're looking to get out of China, if we're looking to reduce our dependence on China for raw materials and processing and battery components, if we want to move away from China, we're going to have to partner with our allied nations.
Does moving away from China mean moving to Mexico, for example? Because the news today is Tesla's going to be building an EV plant in northern Mexico.
Well, for over a quarter of a century, North America has been one integrated automotive industry. Think about it. That's what NAFTA was about, and that's 26, 27 years ago. And then, of course, the modernization of NAFTA, now known as USMCA. We've always been, for that long, a seamless industry between Mexico, the United States, and Canada. Parts made in the United States, made by American workers, support Mexican auto production. And so I think that if we look at Mexico, it's really a part and a supporter of the U.S. automotive industry. So I'm not terribly troubled by that.
And on the subject, or on behalf of the U.S. automotive industry, what else are you lobbying for? What are the biggest issues that the industry is contending with right now?
Yeah, well, first, in addition to making sure that we can implement and support the shift to electrified vehicles through the IRA and other policies, we're also working on safety technology, how we can make sure that the auto industry continues to lead in safety. We also are working with policymakers to make sure that we have a policy to support the deployment and testing of highly automated vehicles on public roads. We are at a critical point. Billions of dollars have been invested. And we now have an opportunity to prove out business models, moving people through urban areas, last mile package delivery safely and effectively. We need a policy environment that supports that.
And finally, if we could talk more about just the macroeconomic environment, what is your read on the health of the U.S. economy, of the risk of a recession, not just here, but globally through the lens of the auto industry? What are you hearing from your members?
Yeah, well, I wish I had a crystal ball on the economy broadly. The industry right now, January sales were fairly strong. There are inventories in dealers around the country, so there's more vehicles available than there was during the height of the pandemic and the challenges we saw with microprocessors. That's starting to work itself out now. So customers are buying. Interest rates are going up, however. So we'll have to see how that interest rate environment continues to shake out through the balance of the year.
Oh, how we would all love to have a crystal ball, John. Thank you so much for joining me. That was John Bozzella, the Alliance for Automotive Innovation CEO.